My name is Jeffrey St Laurent. This is the Live Tuesday call. Had a nice conversation with the few people that we had on the line today live. So I'm looking forward to today's call, and today's topic is around refunds and discounts and understanding those, what to do, and all that. And if you haven't done your coaching business very much, or you haven't had many clients, from a refund standpoint, hopefully you haven't experienced this yet. Or even some people were saying it's like, well, why would they ask for one? Why would they ask for a refund, right? So it does happen, and it will happen. How's that? It's kind of like I used to race road cycling and mountain biking, but for road cyclists, they say there's two types of road cyclists. There's the ones that have fallen and the ones that will fall. So I will say this: you will have a refund request at some point. And then I want to touch upon discounts as well. And those are important topics to really understand moving forward with your business, because if you don't really tap down into understanding your policy, then it can happen more than you think, and it could put you out of business. And I'm not trying to say it to scare you, it's just a reality. And so we'll talk about that. Before we get going, all my calls are recorded and on my website, sellingcoaching.com. Check out my university, got a lot of great education over there for you. And then additionally, right on my homepage at sellingcoaching.com, I have a fantastic resource. If you haven't gotten that yet, it's the ultimate startup guide for new coaches. I bribe you with my dog there. So no, you cannot have my dog, but you will get an awesome guide. So if you check that out, answer your name and email. That also puts you on my email community. Great place to be, not just because you want to receive more emails, but mainly because not only you get to stay up to date with what I'm doing with my calls and so forth and so on, great education, but I do want you to understand how I use email marketing in particular, because knowing email is our number one asset in our business. You deserve to learn as a coach how you can use it as well for yourself. And then lastly, right at the top of my website, I have a request to join my private Facebook group. If you're not a part of that, consider joining. Click over, request to join, see what we're doing. If it's of interest to you, great place for us to interact, a great place for you to start to speak your message and get your voice out there and interact with other coaches. And then lastly, I'm available for one-on-one mentoring. I also do some group mentoring as well. If you're in a position where you're like, oh, I need a little help, I need some guidance, whether you've gone on your own a little ways and you're frustrated and you're sick of that, or you're starting off and you don't want to get to that point of being sick and frustrated, and you want to expedite it the best you can, as best as we can expedite it without the frustration, consider just go to the Work With Me page at sellingcoaching.com. At the bottom, I got a form, fill it out, comes to me. I'll just create a relaxed conversation with you, and we can see where it goes. With that being said, let's rock and roll, refunds and discounts. So let me start on discounts, because that's just something that it's not a long topic, but I wanna start off on that, because to me these two topics were similar, because they compromise your income. How about that? They compromise your income as a business. And I really want you to start seeing, if you're going to do this as a full-time coach, you really need to start seeing, or you deserve to start seeing, your business, your coaching business as a business. And the business of coaching has nothing to do with coaching. That's the reality of it. Your coaching business, I'd say at the most is 20% actual coaching. The other 80% is selling, marketing, and everything in between. And there's a small percentage in there that's administration stuff. But the rest of the stuff, the other, call it, 78% is the marketing and selling. And so understanding those aspects of it. And you've got to really look at your numbers in your business. You've got to keep your revenue goals. I know where I am on a daily basis. I have monthly goals as I go along. And as I get closer and closer to the end of the month, I have my goals and I want to get there, and I figure out how can I get this, and it motivates me and it inspires me to, okay, who can I connect with? Where can I go? Who can I reconnect with? What can I do, to get me over certain numbers? I want you to start seeing your business from that standpoint. So if we're looking at it from a revenue standpoint, when we talk about discounts, that is, one of the things we want to recognize is, I just want to say that anytime you discount your coaching services, you're essentially devaluing your service, right? Because what we charge, whatever the dollar value is, it's exactly that. It's a value. So we provide a value-based service. Let me say that again. It's a value-based service. It's not a commodity. It's not a product, right? It's not a tangible product. It's a value-based service. And the value is based upon the customer and what they're going through and how much they then value what you're offering. And we just happen to put a price tag on it. So when you lower your price or you discount your price, you're essentially devaluing it. Now, it's one thing if you discount it and don't tell anybody about it. Meaning, and I've worked with plenty of coaches as they're starting off, they're thinking, oh, and they're on the phone and they have a complimentary session and they're getting to the end. And let's say their price is, 9 sessions for $1,500. And then they're thinking, oh my God, it's too expensive, they're not gonna buy. And then when they give out their price, instead of saying 9 sessions for $1,500, they go 9 sessions for $1,000. So they just essentially discounted it. But they didn't say, hey, I'm gonna give you a special. Normally it's $1,500, and today, if you decide today, it's gonna be $1,000, right? That might be even better than just discounting it outright, in their head, because at least you're incentivizing it, right? I wouldn't recommend that, but at least someone might be like, ooh, they might have a list incentive to buy. I still wouldn't recommend it, but that's in other words, when you do that in your head, it's, the customers that know it's discounted. That's just you not believing and valuing your own service. That's another topic for discussion. When I'm talking discounts here, I'm just talking about just giving away your sessions for half price. Anything that you're doing to promote and discount. So like on your website, if you're taking a percentage off. Another way of discounting is when you do packages. So a lot of people don't think about this as discounting, but it's discounting, meaning if I have 3 different packages, let's say I have 4 sessions for $1,000. I've got 9 sessions for whatever, $2,000, and then 12 sessions for, $2,700. And I don't even know what the price breakdown, I just made those prices up, right? But let's just say if you break it down cost, if I buy more sessions, basically the cost per session goes down. That's discounting. Number one, those of you that follow me and are my students know I don't recommend anything more than 1 package, 1 price. Meaning 9 sessions, let's say $1,500, whatever it is, right? So 1 choice at the point of sale. People have enough choices in life that they can't decide on. So when you throw them, multiple packages, like how do they know? Do I need 4 sessions? Do I need 12? Well, I don't want to spend $2,700, so I want to spend less, but it's just like the decision can't be there. But then you're discounting. So why if I buy 12 sessions, am I paying less per session? Are you giving me less? Are you providing less value? Are you shortening the time? Are you not providing email support with the package of 12? Why does it cost less per session? It doesn't make any sense, right? So we're not bulk discounting fencing here or clothes, like people buy in bulk, you can get a discount. It's coaching, like an hour is an hour. You put the same value into that. So I want us to get into the habit of never discounting, but rather said differently, as I want you to get in the habit of deciding what you're worth, deciding on the value of your services, right? Your value-based service coaching, and decide on that number, not based on what you feel like, oh, I feel like I couldn't charge more than $75 or $100 for a session, right? I want you to base it upon what you project out for your business in terms of what you need for income, how many sessions you're going to handle on a weekly basis, multiply that number out, get your monthly figure, and if you were to be doing that, is that going to start to cover your monthly expenses if you're doing this full time? And I would say not just cover your monthly expenses, but I want you to be able to earn more than your monthly expenses. Because why do we want to just meet our monthly expenses? What fun is that? Then it's like, great, we're paying for the stuff we need, but what do we do about the stuff we want and those things to have fun above and beyond? So, but obviously just to get you there at least, you need to base that on going, is it going to replace my income? And that's how we base our prices on. I did a call on this not too long ago. Just go to my university, sellingcoaching.com, and type in something about pricing structure. Some calls will pop up. You can pick one of those where I kind of go into details about the pricing structure. But that's an important component there. So just a quick thoughts on those discounts is just never discount. It devalues your service. And you don't need to do that. You don't need to do that. Just trust with what you're looking to do. Trust your product. And when you understand where the customer is and what they want, what they're going after, they will pay your price, because the reality is the difference between $1,000 package and a $1,200 package, if someone's ready to buy, it's not going to make a difference. Between 1,200 and 1,500, between 1,500 and 1,800, you know what I'm saying? It's not going to be a deal breaker. It might be more than they expected, but if they really want to do it, they're going to find a way to do that. And that's not just, oh, Jeff just thinking theory. Like, I've done this since 2004, and that's been the case. This is what I've learned. It's never about the price at that point. If you get it to the point where it's ridiculous and it's way out of whack, then maybe then it is about the price. But when I say it like that, it's just the value is not there, right? It still always comes down to that value-based piece. So that's what I want to say around discounting. And usually I just find it for newer coaches, they'll discount it because, oh, I'm not certified yet, or I'm not whatever, I don't have my website out there yet, or I haven't done any coaching yet. Don't ever devalue yourself, because you never know how you're going to help somebody. And just because you got a piece of paper now that says you're certified, why all of a sudden now are your prices higher than yesterday? That doesn't even make any sense, does it? Yes, so you've been coaching now for 5 years versus 5 days or 5 months. Are you more valuable? Well, no. How about this? You're differently valuable. You have different experience. You can help people differently, but it doesn't mean that what you can do right now on day 5 is any less valuable to someone than after day 50 or 500. It doesn't mean it's just differently valuable. And so always remember those aspects, especially as you're starting off. And then the biggest thing I want to remind you of is that, by having those different price tiers, if you're like, Jeff, I don't agree with you with one package and one price, 9 sessions, let's say for 1,500, then come up with your cost per session. And for the sake of conversation, I'm just going to use 100, even though I feel that's low. But just for easy math, if you're going to have 2 and you don't agree on one package, then do the same price per session. So whatever, 9 sessions for 900 and 15 sessions for 1,500. So they both break down to $100 a session, right? To me, it wouldn't make sense why you're still offering 2 packages at that point. But if you still feel the need to do that, there's no need to change the price. It's the same value. That's just a different way of thinking about it. So if you're going to, last thing I'll say on discounts, if you're going to do anything, what I'd say is that you can give a bonus session, right? So if you're thinking about, hey, if you're going to have someone pay in full, for instance, as opposed to monthly payments, if you pay in full, I'm going to give you a bonus session. I'd rather have you give a bonus session than give a discount, right? Because essentially, a bonus session said differently is a discount, but I'd rather have you tack on a free session than discount something, because now it's perceived differently. Because I don't want you to change your prices for anybody. I don't care how wealthy they are or how broke they are. Money doesn't matter. It's the perceived value for somebody, and that's the big thing there. So from discounts, I want to go into refunds, and this is a big thing. And if you don't think it's a big thing yet, it should never be a big thing ever. Meaning, maybe once or twice a year I'll get a request for a refund. And so it's not like, oh my God, this is happening all the time. I've never had any refund requests because I was a bad coach, meaning like, oh my God, Jeff, this sucked. You suck. I hate this experience. I want my money back, right? If that were to ever happen, I would certainly entertain what it would be like. I would rather, in that situation, I wouldn't necessarily give a refund. What I would do is I would seek to understand why they feel that way. And then I would, instead of giving the refund, I would say, well, I would like to continue coaching with you. If they had a bad session or they didn't get something from it, I think since 2004, I've had, I think off the top of my head, like 3 or 4 times, like sessions where the client, like it went nowhere. And I don't know if it was a combination of where I was or just, we didn't get anywhere, and they didn't feel like they got anywhere in the session. And I felt frustrated too. And I got to the point where I was like, I'll tell you what, let's consider this session a wash. It doesn't count towards your 9. It didn't even happen. Let's resume next week and let's go from there. So I didn't refund anything. I just kind of gave them an extra session because it just was like that. But hopefully you're not getting to the point where people are asking for a refund because you're horrible or they're having a horrible experience. Even if that's the case, you have to remember that it doesn't mean that you're a bad coach. It just means like they might not be coming to the table and doing the work or really be present for this, or the timing might not be right. So even in those instances, I would not refund any money, or rather what I would do is be a coach. Ask them, why do you feel that way? What is it about the coaching that doesn't feel like it's working for you? Tell me about what you are looking for. Okay, what does that look like? What are you wanting from this experience? Again, reassess what they're looking for, what they need, what they specifically want from you, and then find out those details and then go from there. I've always found that to be the case whenever I've been off with a client anywhere. And like I said, it doesn't happen too often, but sometimes it does. And it's just re-clarifying where that is. And usually I find it's because the person's mind shifted directions and I never really got wind of that or was confused about it. So then I had to kind of ask, hey, what's going on here? Where are we going? It feels like we're going in a different direction. So that's that situation. So it's usually never about that. What I find is where the discounts come from or where they ask for that is typically, as you know, I recommend that when you give a complimentary session that you've qualified someone for, at the end of the complimentary session, that's where I recommend, hey, this is where you take their payment information, right? Because there's the cardinal rule in business, especially as a coach, that we do not have a new client until the money is in our bank account. That is a cardinal rule. Do not jump up and down. Do not even smile. Being a little strict. When someone says yes, once you process their credit card, you can smile at that point because it's pretty good. You know, the money ends up in your bank account the next day and you have a client, you can smile. So now here's the thing. If that person at any point asks for a refund, what that means is now we have zero dependability on our income even after it's in our bank account, right? And so where I say refunds, where I've experienced people asking for it is at some point after that time where we have the comp session, they give me their credit card, I run the credit card, congratulations, you're a brand new client, I look forward to our call next week or whenever it is, boom. So the next day, for instance, oh my God, what did I do? Oh my God, my car broke down. And honestly, the number one reason why I've been asked for refunds is something happened in their financial world that then costs them a lot of money. My car broke down, my kid needs this, my furnishing, we need to cut back on expenses. It could lead into just like, oh my God, maybe I can do this myself. But it's been something along those lines. And so with that being said, it can happen before you even start your sessions. It can also happen once you've begun your sessions. After session 1, 2, 3, actually even all the way up through session 8 of 9, let's say. And it could be for any various reasons. Is people's lives change. Someone dies in the family. They get a divorce all of a sudden, or they lose their job. I mean, think of all the certain situations that people go through over the course of a 3, 6, X month time frame where we're starting to work with them on. And so with that being said, that's when they change a direction, or maybe the original reason why they hired you for now has evaporated or diminished because they hired you because they wanted clarity whether they want to leave their marriage or not, let's say, or get a new job. And all of a sudden, after 2 or 3 sessions, they're like, okay, I'm good. I'm going to stay in my marriage. Or I got a job. Or, you fill in the blank. I've had mentoring clients hire me and, 3 or 4 sessions in, it got to the point where they're like, you know what? I don't want to be a coach. I want to be a coach, but I don't want a coaching business. It's too much work. This is not for me. I'm just going to be an employee. Thank you very much. And they've got, 5 sessions left with me. And they're like, hey, listen, I know you don't offer refunds, but can I get a refund, right? This is how it all happens. So with that being said, first off, I'll say, like I said with discounts, I do not recommend discounts and I do not recommend refunds. And I'll say this with strength under any circumstances. Never, and I'm using these words purposely, never give a refund, all right? I will put a small little asterisk for the sake of conversation because and that is ultimately you've got to use your own gut. Your gut meaning, if someone's threatening you, right? If someone's being a real ass about things, I still wouldn't recommend a discount, even with, a refund, with that all being said. But I will say this, it depends on your tolerance and how real you feel this thing is. If someone's threatening you, or if someone's being really mean, or maybe there's a different dynamic because it's a relative of somebody, and it just, you know what I mean? And you're going to see them at family events or somewhere, or your kid's school, and it's every day, and it's just going to be, and you don't want to have to deal with that every day, and that's not giving a refund is not worth the next 5-10 years of this agony. Then that's up to you, right? So I'm just trying to pose different situations, but for the most part, I'd say is never offer a refund. And let me give you some reasons why, and I'm going to take two stances here, because the why is very important. There's the why for them from a client's perspective, meaning it's actually more advantageous for them not to give them a refund. And then I'll go over for us is why it's advantageous for us as a business person to not offer a refund. So for them as a client, their payment to you is their only commitment to you. Right? That's why I said earlier, you never have a client until the money's in your bank account. And the reason I say that is because, well, if they haven't paid you, there's no commitment, right? They can give you a handshake, they can say yes, they can reply to an email, they can do whatever they want, but at the end of the day, they haven't committed other than their word. And at the end of the day, they really don't know you that well, if at all, most likely. And so there's no commitment there. So whether they show up for their first session, whether they miss it, if they haven't paid you yet, and there's not that binding. The binding contract, they can sign something all they want, right? You can have a contract, you can email them something, they can, fax it, mail it back to you with their signature on it. It doesn't mean anything. What the contract is, this is why those of you that work with me, it's like, I don't really have a contract. It's just, here's a welcome letter, here's what's going on, here's how to call me, here are a few policies, no refunds, cancel with 24 hours. I mean, here's how you're gonna pay, let's rock. It's very simple. And the reason I do that is because the contract is their payment. That's the binding contract because I've got the money, right? And so that's going to hold them accountable more than anything, right? That's going to get them to show up to the calls more than anything, right? That's their commitment to not just you, bigger than you themselves, that says, hey, I really want what I want bad enough where, yes, I believe this person, this coach can help me get there. But so I believe in that value enough to actually pay this person. But even bigger than that is now this is my commitment to myself saying, yeah, you know what? I'm serious about this because look I'm paying whatever X amount of $1,000 to do this, right? That's what the big commitment is. And if any of you listening to this, if you've never actually hired a coach yourself or a mentor and not just spent money, but at least what you charge or more, that's a big thing, until you've spent what you're going to charge as a coach or more than that. And if you've never done that and gotten value from it, I believe that's a big heap or a barrier to you either charging more or valuing your services, because you might have gone through a coaching school where you had some peer mentoring or coaching that was quote included in the school, and yes, you paid for it, but it's different. Because it's kind of included. It's like the buffet. It's like I can just have another one. I can have another one, and it doesn't feel like you have to pay another $20 just to have another, lobster or whatever you're going to do, lobster tail. So with coaching, when you hire it, when you buy just a mentor, just the coach, and you're paying $2,000, and it's just for those 9 sessions or whatever it is, it's different. And especially when you do that and you get value from it, it's different for yourself as well. So that's what I mean is you'll know what that commitment means. So it's important for us as coaches from a business standpoint to understand this is the only contract that we have. This is the only commitment that we have to them. And that's the only way that we can keep it. And that's binding, right? That's binding because we've got the money. And so with that being said, that's the commitment to them. So when people have come to me, for those various reasons and asked for those discounts, first off, I make it clear in the letter I send to them that there's no refunds. But when they've asked for that stuff, I don't just say, no, sorry. But I always tell them why. And part of the reasons why is, as I said, this is you committing to go after this. And even if it's changed, I don't like the woman. I don't want to be a coach anymore. I'm done. And she hired me to help her with a coaching business. So it's like, well, okay, what do you do in that situation, right? And here's what I said, is that I can respect that, it changed for you. But what I've learned over the years is that when my clients especially, or even when, the original reason they hired me has changed or completely evaporated, I've always told those people, keep those sessions, because at some point in your life, and it could be next week, next month, and 5 years from now, those sessions never expire. They're good forever. And at some point, you're going to be glad you have those. And we're going to connect, and we're going to have our call again, or we're going to have another call, and you're going to be glad you have those. Some people have gotten upset. Some people have gotten frustrated. But I've stood firm on that. And I'll tell you why in a second from a business standpoint. But I'll tell you this from a client standpoint, that accountability is huge. And the way I want you to pose it to them is that this is me fighting for you. If I offer you if I follow through on your request for a refund, all right, you hired me to be your coach and to hold you accountable for going after what you want to go after. And I can appreciate that, you're trying to cut back on expenses. I can appreciate that, your son needs this, or, your car broke down, or finances are tight right now. I can appreciate that. And, with that in mind, correct me if I'm wrong, this doesn't change you wanting to achieve X, Y, and Z, you wanting to do a full-time business, you wanting to get out of a bad relationship, you fill in the blank, right? This doesn't change that at all. And if I give you a refund, I'm not doing my job as a coach, right? And people they can be whatever. They can be like, oh, that's a bunch of crap, or blah, 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 right? I've never had that. When I've told people this is, every single time, the situation was around this area, they've come back and they said, you know what, you're right. You know what, you're right. And I was like, of course I'm right. Just kidding, right? But the point is that that's it. If you give in that refund, you're giving up on them. That's essentially like you giving up on them. And this is the stuff I tell them. This would be like me giving up on you. And you know what? I'm not going to do that. And I'm sorry. You can apologize. I'm sorry that you're going through this right now. I'm sorry that finances are tight. I'm sorry that you fill in the blank. But it's like, I'm not going to give up on you. And if we need to postpone, if we need to wait till the timing's better, these sessions will never expire. We can keep in touch via email. I will be your biggest supporter. And when the timing's right, we can resume. I don't care how it works, but I'm going to stand there. I'm going to hold you accountable for this. That's the premise that I want you to take, because that's the reality of this, right? If they're not paying, they're not showing up, they're going to fall off. It's too easy. Session 1, session 2, session 3, great. But when you get into that middle, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes it's just like you need to rein people in. You need to be on people. And there's nothing else holding them accountable and them showing up and giving a crap about getting back to you besides the fact that they've paid you money already. That's literally it. That's all you have, unless hopefully they respect you enough to get back to you. But in order to continue on, that's all you have is that commitment. And that's a strong pull for a lot of people. I've had people that have hired me and I've never heard from them again. I don't know what happened. Like, some people have hired me and then set their first session up. They never showed up. And then next thing you know, it's like years have gone by. I had one guy hire me after an event for $2,500. This is when I was playing with my packages. I sold that session of 12 or something like that. And this is a long time ago, 10 plus years. And we did one session and it's like dropped off face of the earth. Did an event like a year and a half later. He was at that event, similar crowd and everything. He saw me. I'm like, dude, you still got like 11 sessions left with me. He's like, I want to hire you again. And I'm like, yeah, you've got 11 sessions with me. He's like, no, I want to recommit and pay you again. I'm like, really? I'm like, okay. Why? I mean, I'm not going to force the guy not to pay me again. I'm like, I'm still going to give him the extra 9 sessions after that. Followed up with him, just dropped off the face of the planet. I don't know if he felt guilty or whatever it was, but he hired me again, dropped off the face of the planet. I've had people hire me, and these aren't refunds, but the point is that the point of me saying this is that people will pay you, and sometimes it won't be even enough for them to stay, or something happens in their life, and they don't even ask for a refund. They don't even go there. So I want you to understand that as much as it's a commitment for some people it's not a commitment, right? It's something bigger than that, and they're willing to let it go. And whether the people, quote, have money or not, it really I've found to be irrelevant, because that's happened with people, at least from what I was able to tell through the conversations, from all different financial situations, abundant and tight from that matter. So just recognize, money isn't always that pull, but for the majority of people, that's something that's keeping them back. That's their commitment, right? So that's a big piece in terms of the perspective for them. From a business standpoint, now this is important for us to understand. we have to recognize now, this is another bigger piece that this isn't something I would share with a client that's asking for a refund. I would share this with a mentoring client of mine because they need to understand the business of coaching. But if they were, if you will, a life coaching client as an example, I wouldn't share this side with them because they don't need to know. This is like my stuff, if you will, from a business perspective. This shouldn't have to do anything with them, nor should they have to care about this. But I'll say this. With that being said, just like I wouldn't share that with them, if you offer refunds or offer them too easily, what happens is other people's problems now become yours. And why should that be? So if someone's, furnace breaks or a car breaks down or you fill in the blank, need a new roof or kid needs something, why should now you have to pay for that? Right? So in other words, you've earned this money. And what I want you to understand is from a business perspective, we earn our money not when we coach the client. Not when we coach the client. We earn our money in acquiring the client. So that's the client acquisition cost. You can look at this a lot of different ways. You can look at your marketing costs, and then that could be, the cost of acquisition of a client. But either way, I look at it as I'm getting paid to market and to educate. Like this call right here, like all this stuff I do for free that you guys know. Like I got my calls. I do a lot of stuff for free. I'm on my Facebook group. I'm answering questions. I'm following up on email. I'm messaging people. How's it going? Tell me more. This is like that marketing stuff what we're talking about, right? This is free. Some of it costs. I do Facebook ads, right? So that's my cost of doing business. Some of it's a hard cost, like a Facebook ad, right? Some of it's hard costs that I'm, paying for like a lead pages, for instance, to host my landing pages. So that's a hard cost. But then there's no cost that can replace the time that I'm putting in, the value of my time, hour by hour, as I interact, as I do these calls, as I put them up there and edit them, or whatever cost I would have for an administrator to do that, right? I'm not, quote, getting paid for that. So what I look at is when I get paid after a complimentary session, I'm getting paid for all that hard work to get that client, right? So I've got this client. That's a lot of work for everyone listening to this and knows as a coach. It's like, what's the hardest thing in the world to do, especially as you're coming into this? It's like, oh my God, getting a client. It's like when I was younger in high school, it's like getting a girlfriend. How do I get a girlfriend? I don't know. It's just, how do I do this? It's so mysterious to me, But you got to learn how do we do that, right? So it's same thing here. It's just like, how do we get a client? Like it's mysterious, it's hard, but we understand that in that education, that self-education, we get paid for the value we bring to the marketplace. We get paid more as an entrepreneur because we become more valuable. That's that self-education. And so as we get educated more, listening to these calls, you're educating yourself, you're becoming more valuable. That's what you're going to get paid for, right? So now, once you get paid, why should you have to now you've gotten paid for your efforts, right? Keep their commitment. Don't make their challenge, their financial challenge, or whatever the reason, asking them yours, right? This is where you have to fight for yourself and your family and your responsibilities, putting food on the table, keeping the lights on, and even taking the trip or doing something fun above and beyond. And it doesn't matter how much money you're making, and hopefully, like I said, you're making more than enough, more than the bills, etc. And you deserve that because you work hard for that and you've become more valuable. And so what I say this is don't allow those challenges then become yours. Do your job, hold them accountable, but from a business perspective, that's a very important aspect of that, right? We have to be able to rely on something, right? And as an entrepreneur, it's a very unreliable business. Business is unreliable in the sense that, there's no guarantees that where our next paycheck's coming from. Even if you've got recurring revenue on something, a membership site or people in different products or services that are recurring, et cetera, where they renew every month, there's no guarantee. People can cancel. I mean, there's a certain expectation you can have in terms of once you know your statistics, right? So there's some expectations that you can rest on, but when's your next client? Where are they? When are they going to come? You can't ever predict that. People say like, oh, coaches, I'm going to get 5 clients this month. I'm like, well, how are you going to predict that? Well, what stats do you have to back that up? And, okay, what are you specifically going to do to get that? And how do you know that activity is actually going to do that? You know what I mean? So we don't have the ability to predict that, but we do have the ability to predict is what are the actions required that I'm going to do each and every day. And then let's see what that turns into. We can then start to have some type of predictability. But the only other predictability we have is when someone hires us and they give us their money, right? willingly because they want to do it. You can't force someone to do that. And that's the only predictability you have. So now we have that. You've got to be able to count on that money. So let's say you take in $2,000, right? You've got to account for that money now, especially once that money is, quote, allocated. When I say allocated, meaning, okay, I just earned $2,000. Well, I'm going to take some money out for taxes, right? And let's say I'm going to take $1,000 and I'm going to put that towards, maybe it's going to go to my mortgage payment that I have that I've already saved some for it. It's going to finish it off. This other, whatever, $200 is going to go towards the rest of my car payment. This, so you're allocating it. This X amount of $100 I'm going to save, or I'm going to invest, or I'm going to use towards this trip. Whatever you're doing with it, it's allocated. In other words, it's spent. Even if it's not physically spent, meaning it's out of your account, which in some cases at some point it will, whether it's saved or it's actually spent, it's allocated, right? And you've got to be able to rely on that. So then if someone later on down the road, especially, not like, oh, they just hired you and 2 days later, but let's say they've done 2, 3, or 4 sessions, and now they're saying, oh, something's changed or whatever, they're asking for a refund. And now let's say there's, $1,000 a refund. That then becomes an expense for you. Now all of a sudden it's just like you need new tires, you need new brakes, you need a new furnace, you need new, whatever, braces for your kids, $3,000, right? Now this becomes an expense for you that you weren't anticipating, right? So now you've got to come up with $1,000, $2,000 or whatever it is and whoa, how does that work, right? Because someone else's mind changed or something else changed. Do you see what I mean? So like, and again, this isn't something I would ever say to the client, but this is something that I want you to understand, to reinforce and stand up for yourself and your family and your business. It shouldn't be the customers. They don't need to know about this aspect of it, but I want you to understand this. All you need to know is to convey to them is, hey, I'm holding you accountable. This is what you said. This is what you committed to. Let's do this. So from that standpoint, I want to know from our standpoint is like you need that stability. You need to count and rely on that income. When you get paid money, especially early on, when clients are fewer than more, right? In other words, they're not coming in as fast, maybe, because it's slow sometimes. We're building our audience. But they're not as fast and they're not as abundant. You get a new client a month, and let's call it whatever, $1,500. It's like, okay, that's great, but that $1,500 is probably going very quickly, especially if you're transitioning from a job, and things are, barely scraping by or you're just meeting expenses. There are those phases in our world where we are there. And so especially in those conditions, but even if you're above and beyond, don't think like, oh, my expenses are $6,000 a month and I'm earning $15,000 a month. So great, I've got all this, excess income. Don't make it be like, oh, well, I can just refund it, no problem. No, same situation, because that money should be allocated. If you're doing 15 a month and your expenses are 6, that extra money that needs to be, well, what are you doing with that? Well, definitely saving for taxes. But where are you investing that? Finding tax, how are you investing it? What are you doing with it? You need to understand that, and that money should be allocated as well. And so those are just some really big philosophies for both sides. And the last thing I'll share about refunds is what I've experienced is that when those sessions that they have left over, whether it's all 9 of them or whether it's just a few or even one, what I found is the value of that is some people never use them. Meaning, well, I'll say never because they never expire. But they haven't used them. And some people, it's been, for me, 6, 7 years, and I can think of a few offhands that I know they still have a couple sessions left. It's in my books type of thing. And every now and then, what I'll do is with those people, I have them on a list, and I'll every now and then, and it could be once a year, depending on how long it's been. It could be every few months. I'll get in touch with them. Hey, how are things going? Just to let you know, as I'm sure you know, you've still got a couple sessions with me. You've still got one session with me. If you're ever in a position where you find that will be valuable, let me know. We can schedule a session. I love having those extra sessions, to be honest with you, because now it gives an opportunity, especially if something's happening in their world where something's going on. They've had those sessions with me, whether it's 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it is. And what I found, and I can't give you a real statistic on this, but how about this? More often than not, of those people that use that, I'll say more than 50%, have rehired me. So in other words, they've got 2 sessions left. They do the 2 sessions and like, this is great. And they loved working with you in the first place. Why wouldn't they love working with you again? Especially if, something's important in their life that they need to work through. In other words, there's value for having someone like you as a coach in their life. And I found that, more than 50% of those people will rehire me. And so it's great. And that's another reason why, from a business perspective, that it's good to have those and it's good to keep those, because later on, if they use them, it doesn't mean they will rehire you, but they'll at least get value from them and they'll be grateful they had them. But in addition to that, it could lead to more business. And I've experienced that, and that's a really good thing. And I will tell people that they're great. I hold on to these sessions because they will be valuable for you. I had one person in particular, actually mentor coaching of mine. They're doing a coaching business and totally, like I said earlier, stopped wanting to do it. That person had, like I said, 5 sessions left with me. And I said, hold on to them. They asked for a refund. I was solid with it. And I said, no. I gave her all the reasons and stuff like that. And then I said, hold on to them. I guarantee you're going to benefit from that. They decided to gift them to a friend who was a coach. And I'm like, yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine, right? So I ended up working with that friend, used, I think it was, like I said, the 5 sessions. And then sure enough, it was like 2 or 3 months later, this person comes back to me and says, hey, did you use all those sessions with the friend that I gave you? I'm like, yeah, why? Like, oh, because something changed and I want to do this again, and I want to work with you. I want to use those sessions. And I'm like, oh, well, sorry. I'm like, they used them already. So this person ended up rehiring me at that point again. And so the point being is, this is a quick example as I close this off to say, and this, I could give you more stories just like this, as people coming back and being glad they had those. So stand firm for yourself. It's self-respect. It's respecting your business. It's respecting your role and duty as an income earner for yourself and your family. It's also respecting the client, respecting their wishes and their wants, and for what they're going after, and respecting yourself as a coach as being a huge part and a huge role in that fulfillment of their dreams. So those are the different aspects of why it's so important for refunds and also discounts. A lot of that parallels with discount as well.